Hi, I'm Lisa Smith. I'm an engineering manager at Netflix, and I run a team that's responsible for tech debt. So I know you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
What hey Lisa,
Hey,
what are
Luke.
what are people doing wrong?
Tech debt,
What?
100%.
But
So
I'm
we,
ignoring it. Isn't that the right thing to do? Is that not the
right, exactly. That's the primary mode is ignoring it. It's fine, or we just put up with it, or they get real anxious about it, but they don't actually try to understand what it is. um, you gotta, I'm not gonna say the second, but you gotta like name it. You gotta understand what it is. And if you don't understand what its parameters are, it's an incalculably large mass like the Alps. Like we know they're big. Do you know how
Mhm.
much they weigh? No, nobody knows that.
Yeah, how you can't
Right?
weigh the
It's
Alps.
right, exactly, exactly. So it's just this big looming specter that hangs about. Everybody complains about it, everybody moans, but nobody actually does anything and they can't move it forward because they don't know what it is. And it's typically generated by um incomplete or unnecessary or poorly planned architectural migrations. And sometimes people call them migrations when it's in fact re-architecture, and they're like, no, we just need to change to this new thing. And I'm it's like it's a light switch kind of a situation.
Yeah.
So we glide past all of the actual complexities. We don't plan for it, and then we're like surprised when it takes 3 to 5 years and nobody's actually doing it correctly, or we get anti-patterns of people making expedient choices like um, setting up a federated DGS that then calls back into an API. That's fine. Let's
That's
just keep adding
what could
hops to
possibly
things.
go wrong? I mean, does it
Right.
work? I'm here
Yeah.
about the outcome, not the
Like,
process.
listen, it does work. That's the sad part, but it's like the latency and like, oh God, the traffic. We're planning for some, you may have heard, some big things around here that we probably don't want to stress test on Christmas Day. So maybe don't do that for us in advance.
Maybe like performance and latency and like risk in a
Those are
system.
things. Those are things we need to worry about. Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, like the other problem with tech debt that I see is that people always approach it as a negative. And that's absolutely the wrong stance to take because then you're always going to be in some sort of like fractious relationship with it. When it's like, what if you stopped and thought about it for a little while and this legacy thing that you're dragging around, what if you, instead of saying you have to get rid of it all in one big fell swoop, if you like flipped it over and looked at what its components were and started just like ticking those off one by one. Like there are definitely different ways to approach things rather than like I have to take this giant monolithic monster out of the middle of my system. What if I broke it down into its components and saw what it was actually doing? And then what if maybe I thought about what was the best way to get my outcome instead of being like, I have to do this thing. I have to just like lift it and put it into this other thing. What if we didn't need to do that anymore?
Yeah.
I
Do
just,
you know what
my
the what's the
question,
children's book? The steam shovel thing I read in second grade, Mike Mulligan's steam shovel, one of
yeah,
those like, and then no, the answer is when you can't get the tractor out of the hole or whatever, that you
yeah,
just leave it there and you build a house around it and you just sort
right.
of like black box and go like, it's a black box. Don't mess with
Exactly.
it. Just add
Exactly.
layers. You're saying maybe that would be an anti-pattern to just sort of like black box it and just, but assume it can't be moved.
I think though, if you like really thought about it, you could figure out a way to either make it do what it needs to do in a new way, but not exactly the same pieces. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be exactly the same. Do you get what you need at the end of the day? Then come at it from a different angle. Like my big question that I'm always asking is, what if we didn't? What if we didn't do that thing anymore? Because like I think the problem is that people are like, we have to, and I'm like, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. There's literally nothing that you have to do. And you can really approach these things a little more pragmatically. What do you need at the end of the day? You just need the results from this particular, service or whatever.
Mhm.
Like figure out how to do that. Maybe it's not maybe it's a gRPC call, maybe it's it's not a federated GraphQL approach, but maybe there's all different kinds of ways to approach this rather than being like you have to be in this particular thing. I'm more of the like, but what if we just thought about what we needed from this service, but also maybe ask a few questions before we just run off willy-nilly and build a new one. Like if you maybe like poke your head up and look around a little bit, are there other people who need similar things and you could build something that's slightly more abstracted and then everybody gets what they want? Now, I know the danger there is like you abstract it out too far away and then you end up with, unintelligible nonsense. But like maybe just check around and see before you start just like, I have the perfect solution to this one very particular niche problem. I could maybe do something that other people could leverage as well.
Right. We
So
see
like
that in the
working
micro
together.
level of like, so I'm in a very small and earlier stage company than you are. And like,
Yes.
there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of endpoints in this monolith and like probably twice as many as like technically required because
Yes.
sometimes it's just easier to make a new one than to figure out where the
Yes.
old one are. And so we have like, there's how many are doing the same thing? How
Yes.
many of them are doing almost the same thing? And
Yes.
you wouldn't want the minimum number and just overload everything with parameters
Right.
and like you
Right.
could do it with one endpoint.
Right. Right.
Right? And you
You
could
gotta
do it
find
with
that road.
infinite. Um,
Exactly.
but there is that like, do I want to figure out what other people have already done and then learn that and then map what I want to do to them? Or I could just clean sheet of paper. It
Exactly.
feels so
It's
good to
so
just get a clean
easy.
sheet of
It's
paper.
so easy. And like, do you have a discovery problem? We, for a company who like perhaps makes a living on helping people discover things, are not great at it internally. And so like people are like, like I'm gonna look. Okay, I looked and I didn't find it. Very much like your kids when you're like, where are your shoes?
Yeah.
Same kind of problem. I'm
They're under
like,
my bed.
right, exactly. Like, did you really look or did you just look?
Yeah.
And so
Right,
like,
right, right.
did you spend any time thinking about this or asking like it seems like somebody should have done this, but that's also that's another anti-pattern too, where it's like, surely we've figured this out by now, where the answer is we have not.
Yeah.
We've just been willy-nilly,
Right. I
chucking
definitely worked at a
random
very
stuff.
large company that had 23 different ways to do manage strings of text that went on a website.
Yes. Oh my gosh, strings of text are a thing that we're wrestling with right now. And we have the new service that doesn't do all the things that the old service did. And so people are like, but I could do that over here. And I'm like, yeah, but they don't support that anymore. So we need to figure out a different way. And they're like, well, but we figured out this new way and it's perfect. And I'm like, but it's not perfect, is it? It's not perfect because you didn't ask what the old system was accomplishing. You were just like, we're going to start a new system because the old one is too something. It's a bottleneck. And I'm like, is it
And
a
I didn't write
bottleneck?
it.
Right, exactly. I didn't write it exactly. Is it a bottleneck or is it just a place that we haven't spent time optimizing? Like, could we just massage this thing a little bit and get it to where we need it? Do we have to chuck it out and start over? I mean, I'm all for pioneering, but also like, people died on the Oregon Trail of dysentery. And so like we don't need to go that we don't need to go it alone. We can maybe ask our friends and see if they've had a solution, or do you need something just like this? Maybe we could partner up and not have to take on the burden ourselves. Because
The
people
go it
forget,
alone part is not super interesting to me because really
right?
that's the challenge is like, I don't want
Right.
to go to meetings. I want to write code. Writing
Right.
code is more fun than going to meetings.
It
But to
absolutely.
build the right thing together has an
Yes.
overhead cost. It feels
Yes.
slower.
It does feel slower, but my point there is investment at the beginning helps us avoid some of the problems that turn into slowdowns later. So like looks slower slightly, but it's only an illusion. Like if you just barrel through a thing and you knock everybody over as you're moving through, is it really safer? It's not. It's just, like there was quickness. You got to a destination, but did you get to the right place? And does everybody still have what they need when you got there? Probably not, because you just were like, I'm going to go as fast as I can. When I started here, I was working on an internal tooling team where we were just cranking out the apps super, super fast. But we had zero testing, zero observability, and like we were just cranking out garbage quickly. And I'm like, but if we stopped for a second, we built tests along with it and some observability. So the only, before that, it was my customers telling me that they couldn't use the thing I built. That's a bad look. Don't like that at all. So like maybe if we put those things in there, we can build it one time and not have to keep rebuilding it every year. Wouldn't that be fun? We could build new things.
That's
They
wild.
weren't thinking that far ahead, right? It was more like, well, I mean, we're just gonna build this. We'll build it again next year if we have to. And I'm like, I don't like that. Let's stop for a second. Slow down slightly.
We're so fast. We could do it
Later.
over and over and over again very
Exactly.
quickly.
Well, you may have seen there's a very funny I think it was College Humor, Screen Rants, sorry, Screen Rants, um about how to be an executive here at my company, and it's the TLDR was throw a bag of money at it. And that was our solution for a really long time. You have a problem, just throw a bag of money at it. And it's like, but yeah, that's only sustainable for so long. After a while, the bags of money tend to like not be as readily available and or as chuckable. So like you got to figure out how to make do.
Yeah.
And that's a real shift for people around here. So I think, like when you go from freewheeling anything goes to like having to be a little more process oriented, people start to get real itchy and grumpy. And they're like, I just want to build the thing. And I'm like, I know you just want to build the thing, but did you think about the thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
No. And so then more tech debt. That's the problem, is that like I can see them creating future tech debt
Hmm.
today by not engaging in some thoughtful approaches to things. They're like, I was talking about this last week. I understand why they're re-engaging with my API from their DGS, because basically I'm like, you have to go buy a super expensive thing. I have a room full of gold doubloons right here, but no, you can't go in there. I know you see them. I know you know. And you're like, but they're right there. I could just grab a couple of them and do what I need to do. And I'm like, yeah, but no, you can't, you shouldn't do that. And it's hard to tell them why they shouldn't do that because they're like, I can rely on this. I know it's there. I know what it does. It provides to me expected returns. I'm like, I sympathize. And yet that's just not, that's not going to help us move forward. So
Right. Right. At the
what if we
stage that
have,
we're at, which is very early, I think of technical debt the way that I think of VC money. It's all debt. You leverage it to get to a thing. It's like a credit
yep,
card. You can
right,
say, I am
absolutely.
choosing to do some
Yes,
stuff fast and cheap right now, but I
yes,
know I'm going to have to pay that off. And
yes,
now we're at this like middle maturity stage, right? Where it's not early days, but
yep,
we also don't have like infinite time to just like go rewrite everything and make it perfect
fair.
and like
That's
not try to like build the beautiful machine.
right.
So how do I manage between this company size and that company size? How do we manage that level of debt while still maintaining that we are a go fast machine? We gotta do some stuff right now.
It's one of my favorite things to do was when I was at the medium-sized place was um, I would call it a choose your own adventure sprint. Everybody has a pet ticket that they parked in the backlog that's like, I'm going to come back to this when I have more time, but then they never come back to it. So we always had these weird breaks where it was like right before a holiday or when we were doing our big all hands, like production just ground to a halt because everybody's like prepping to travel and then traveling and then recovering from travel. So like there was always these weird, like sort of, the ends of the bread kind of sprints where nobody really wanted to move anything forward. And I'm like, I know you have tickets in the backlog. Just grab all those and we'll just crush them out and get them done. And we would do those at least once a quarter. And
Nice.
so just like set aside a time when you're like, we're just going to go in and just do some housekeeping, weeding the garden so other things can grow and like just dedicate some time to it. Put no expectations on what you need to get through. Just know that you're making things better and cleaner and leaving it better than when you found it. And after a while, you'll just have a regular cadence of that you can lean into. But ignoring it's not going to help it. And like being like, oh, we have to dedicate the next 6 months to tech debt alone. You got to keep moving. You always have to keep moving forward. And that constant balance between keeping the lights on and innovating is a tough one, but if you don't keep the lights on, you won't be able to see to innovate. So like you've got it, whatever's paying the bills, you got to make sure is still in good enough, serviceable enough condition to keep moving forward. So give it a little, every once in a while. You don't have to dedicate your entire life to it, but you can't ignore it completely.
I love that. It's like making it part of the way that you work as you go. Like if I said, I'm going to go to the gym until I get down to this weight and then I'm never going to have to go to the gym again, pretty
Right.
soon I would have to go to the gym
Right.
again. Like
Exactly right. You're right.
but if it is
Exactly.
the sort of thing that I do, if I'm stealing from whatever guy's book on my shelf, the Atomic Habits guy, if I
Yes.
am the sort of person who occasionally goes to the gym, that's
Yes.
actually a better state to be in than say, I'm going to go to
Exactly.
the gym for like the next month and just burn it and then
Exactly
not
right.
never go again.
Exactly right. Incremental progress is still progress. And so like, but also you kind of need to get into a mindset. I prefer, I'm shaped more like fire marshal than firefighter. And I like working in that manner because like while a diving save looks great on camera, it's exhausting and prone to injury. So like what you want to do is make sure that you've got enough systems in there or you set up the big crash mat that they use for stunt humans that you can land safely. So like you got to figure out the ways to make this a sustainable practice. Sustainability is my constant mantra here and I'm certain one day somebody's going to slug me over it, but I'm like you can't just have one person in charge of this system so that they're on call 24/7, 365. That person will at some point need to not be here for whatever reason. like root canal happens, tires explode. None of that happens conveniently outside of the 9 to 5 hours. So like there's going to be a time when this person won't be here. How do we accommodate that? What do we do? And I set up a couple of like novel teams to help do legacy support, because that's the other thing that people forget. Like if your business is still riding on it, somebody still needs to take care of it. If you ignore it and let it fall into disrepair, you're going to be in way worse shape. So like you've got to balance these things, and it's all about picking a way that makes people not want to like run from the building screaming, or, you know, like feel like they don't have any compatriots in that, because single points of failure, they make me very itchy. And I stumbled into a whole raft load of them when I picked up this team, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the worst. Why are you taking this? We hire unusually responsible people, and then we use that as a stick to hit them with. We're like, oh, you can just keep taking care of this because we're not going to see it. It's fine.
Right, because
You
you're too responsible to just say no, fuck off.
Right, exactly right. Well, I had one person who was up for promotion, and the promotion committee was like, he never lets anything go. And I was like, to whom? Who would you suggest that he give it to? No one else will take it. And so like he keeps all this stuff together through the goodness of his own heart and like sheer determination of will. I'm like, but that's not something that we should take as his fault. That's a fault of management. It was your fault.
Probably
You did,
was my fault. Yeah.
right?
A
Not
lot of
you.
things are. Um, this is awesome. All right, everybody stop doing it wrong. Do you have a
Yes.
pithy one-liner?
Uh, do it like you like, do it the way you mean to do it, right? Practice the way you mean to continue. Make it part of your practice, and it'll be a thing that you can do regularly. Don't ignore it.
Awesome. Now give me a thing I can edit to the beginning where you say, "Hi, Lisa, I work at Netflix," or something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hi, I'm Lisa Smith. I'm an engineering manager at Netflix, and I run a team that's responsible for tech debt. So I know you're doing it wrong.